There comes a moment many people over 60 experience unexpectedly. It might happen while getting up from a chair, walking through a store, or crossing a parking lot. Suddenly, your steps feel slower, your balance less steady, and you reach for support you never needed before. Then a worrying thought appears. What if this keeps getting worse? For many older adults, walking is more than movement. It's freedom, independence, and the ability to enjoy daily life. When walking becomes difficult, life can feel smaller. Many people assume this is just a normal part of aging. They believe weak legs and balance problems are unavoidable. But that's not always true. Take Robert, age 78. He loved his daily neighborhood walks. Over time, his walks became shorter, his legs tired faster, and he started avoiding longer outings. The hardest part wasn't the discomfort. It was feeling like he was losing his independence. One day, while walking with his granddaughter, he struggled to keep up. She slowed down for him, and although she meant well, Robert felt discouraged. That night, he wondered if this was simply part of getting older. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many people blame age, knees, or hips, but there is often another overlooked reason. Small mobility changes can affect everyday life. You may park closer to entrances, avoid stairs, or skip walks. These habits seem minor, but over time they can reduce both activity and confidence. Helen, 83, experienced this after stumbling off a curb. She didn't fall, but the scare made her more cautious. Gradually, she walked less and lost confidence. What hurt most wasn't the stumble, it was the fear afterward. Sometimes the biggest threat to mobility isn't weakness, it's fear. Fear leads to less activity leads to weakness, and a difficult cycle begins. The good news is that this cycle can be broken. Experts have found that many walking problems happen because certain muscles become weaker and movement patterns become less efficient over time. Think of it like a path through a field. If it's used regularly, it stays clear. If not, it becomes overgrown. The path is still there, it just needs to be used again. That's why today's topic matters. Soon, we'll look at 3 simple exercises that can help improve strength, balance, and confidence while walking. They don't require special equipment or intense workouts. Before that, consider Walter, age 91. Even short walks around his home felt exhausting. As his family helped more, he felt his independence slipping away. Then a physical therapist asked him a simple question. When was the last time you trained your body specifically for walking? Walter realized he had never thought about it that way. What he learned changed how he viewed mobility and aging. Many people don't struggle with walking simply because they're older. They're missing a few key movements that support safe, confident walking. And one of those movements may be the reason you feel less steady when standing up, climbing stairs, or walking across a parking lot. Walter couldn't stop thinking about that question. When was the last time you trained your body specifically for walking? At first, it sounded strange because most people believe that simply walking from time to time is enough to maintain mobility. But the therapist explained something surprising. Walking is actually a skill, just like balance, standing up from a chair, or climbing stairs. And like any skill, if it's not practiced properly, it gradually becomes weaker. This might explain what many people over 60 experience. You may still be able to walk, but perhaps not with the same confidence as before. Maybe you hesitate before stepping onto a curb, feel unsteady when turning around, or find it harder to stand up from a chair. Many people blame their feet or knees, but one of the most overlooked causes is weakness in the hips and upper legs. These muscles are essential for walking, standing, and maintaining balance. When they weaken, steps become shorter, walking slows down, and balance becomes less reliable. The body isn't failing, it's simply adapting. Unfortunately, these changes can slowly reduce confidence and independence. James, an 82-year-old man, experienced this firsthand. He was still active and healthy, but he noticed he needed to push himself up with his arms every time he stood from his recliner. The change happened so gradually that he barely noticed it until his daughter pointed it out. That's often how mobility loss begins, not suddenly, but through small changes that build up over time. James later learned that standing up strongly isn't just about getting out of a chair. It's directly connected to walking, balance, and independence. That's why the first exercise is so important. The exercise is simple. Sit near the front of a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor. Slowly stand up, pause for a moment, then sit back down with control. It may seem too easy, but this movement trains one of the most important skills for daily life. Every time you do it, you're strengthening the muscles used for getting out of bed, standing from the dinner table, using the bathroom, shopping, and spending time with family. These are the movements that help preserve independence. Walter began practicing this exercise regularly. At first, he could only do a few repetitions before getting tired, but after several weeks, he noticed standing up felt easier. Soon after, walking around his home felt smoother, and climbing stairs became less intimidating. The improvements were small at first, but they continued to build over time. Many people search for quick fixes, but mobility is usually restored through consistent, gradual progress. Small improvements add up, and that's what makes them powerful. This exercise also helps address one of the biggest fears adults over 60 face, the fear of falling. Most falls don't happen during difficult activities. They happen while standing up, turning around, or stepping over everyday objects. The stronger and more controlled these movements become, the more confidence people often regain. Confidence and mobility are closely connected. When confidence drops, people move less. When they move less, weakness increases. But when strength improves, confidence often returns, leading to more activity and better mobility. However, strength is only part of the story. Some people have fairly strong legs and still struggle with walking or balance. They still feel unsteady and worry about falling. The reason involves another important factor that affects stability every second you're standing. Most people don't think about it until problems begin, and it's exactly what the second exercise is designed to improve. If you've ever felt unsteady while standing still, the next part may explain why. Many people assume balance is something you're either born with or lose as you get older. But balance is actually a skill that depends on several systems working together every moment of the day. Your eyes help you understand where you are. Your inner ear helps detect movement, and tiny muscles throughout your feet, ankles, and legs constantly make small adjustments to keep you upright. Most of these adjustments happen automatically. You don't think about them. You simply stand, walk, turn, and move through life. But as the years pass, these systems may not communicate as efficiently as they once did. The result can be subtle. You may feel less stable when standing in line, nervous walking across uneven ground, or find yourself instinctively reaching for furniture when moving around your home. Many people assume these feelings are simply part of aging, but that's not always the case. Margaret, age 87, noticed something similar. She could still walk around her house and take care of herself, yet she found herself avoiding certain situations. She stopped attending some community events, avoided crowded places, and became nervous whenever she encountered uneven sidewalks. Her family thought she was simply becoming less social. The truth was very different. Margaret was worried about losing her balance. She never talked about it because she didn't want to worry anyone, so she quietly adjusted her life. And that's something many older adults do. They don't necessarily stop walking. They just stop doing the things that make them feel vulnerable. Unfortunately, those small adjustments can slowly shrink a person's world. One day, Margaret mentioned her concerns during a routine appointment. What happened next surprised her. Instead of recommending complicated exercises, she was taught a simple balance movement that she could safely practice at home. At first, she didn't think it could possibly help. The exercise seemed too easy. But within a few weeks, she noticed something important. She felt more confident standing, more comfortable turning around, and began walking with less hesitation. The exercise itself was remarkably simple. Stand behind a sturdy chair and lightly hold the back for support. Then slowly lift one foot a few inches off the floor while balancing on the other leg. Hold the position for several seconds, lower the foot, and repeat on the opposite side. That's all. It may not look impressive, but this movement trains something extremely important. It teaches the body how to maintain stability when weight shifts from one leg to the other. And every step you take requires exactly that skill. Walking is essentially a series of controlled balancing movements. For a brief moment during every step, your body relies heavily on one leg before transferring weight to the other. When that ability weakens, walking often feels less secure. When it improves, confidence frequently follows. Many people are surprised to learn that balance can improve with practice. Not overnight and not dramatically, but gradually and consistently. The key is patience. Small improvements often lead to meaningful changes over time. A gentleman named Frank learned this lesson at age 94. Frank had always considered himself careful, but after a minor stumble in his driveway, he became increasingly cautious. Soon he was watching every step, avoiding certain activities, and limiting his walks. His family noticed he seemed less confident than before. What Frank didn't realize was that his fear was beginning to influence how he moved. The more worried he became, the more tense he walked. The more tense he walked, the less naturally his body responded to small balance challenges. It became a cycle. Then his granddaughter encouraged him to start practicing simple balance exercises. Frank was skeptical. He expected something complicated. Instead, he was shown the same basic movement. Margaret learned standing safely behind a chair and practicing balance for short periods each day. At first, progress felt slow, but over the following months, something changed. He stopped focusing on what might happen and started noticing what he could do. His confidence began returning. And confidence can be incredibly powerful, because when people feel safer moving, they often become more active. When they become more active, strength and mobility frequently improve as well. This is one reason mobility experts often emphasize balance training alongside strength exercises. The two work together. Strong muscles help support movement, while good balance helps control movement. Together, they create something many older adults value deeply: confidence. The confidence to walk through a grocery store, attend family gatherings, and move around the home without constantly worrying about falling. Yet there is still another piece of the puzzle. And this final piece is often overlooked even by people who exercise regularly. Some adults improve their strength. Some improve their balance. Yet they still complain that walking feels slow, stiff, or tiring. Why? Because walking isn't only about strength and balance. It's also about movement. The body needs to move efficiently. The legs need to lift properly. And the joints need to stay mobile. When that natural movement pattern becomes restricted, every step can require more effort than necessary. The third exercise addresses exactly that problem. In fact, it may be the simplest of all three. Yet many people discover that it helps them feel lighter, smoother, and more comfortable while walking. And the story of a remarkable 100-year-old woman who continued walking independently well into her later years reveals why this movement may be more important than most people realize. At 100 years old, Eleanor still enjoyed something many people half her age had already given up: walking, not because she had perfect health or extraordinary genetics, but because she understood a simple truth: movement helps create movement. She often said that on days when she stayed active, she felt better. On days when she sat for long periods, her body felt much stiffer. While this sounds simple, it highlights something important. When joints move regularly and muscles stay active, walking usually feels smoother and easier. But when movement decreases, the body starts adapting. Steps become shorter, walking slows down, and everyday activities require more effort. Eleanor refused to accept stiffness as an unavoidable part of aging. Every morning, she spent a few minutes doing a simple exercise that kept her legs active and coordinated. For support, stand behind a sturdy chair or countertop. Slowly lift one knee toward your chest as comfortably as possible. Lower it with control, and then repeat with the other leg. Continue at a comfortable pace. This simple marching-in-place exercise may look basic, but it offers several benefits. It helps the hips move more freely, activates muscles used for walking, improves coordination, and reinforces the natural motion needed to lift your legs while taking steps. For people who feel their walking has become slower or more shuffling, this exercise can be especially helpful. Of course, no exercise is a miracle solution, and no single movement can solve every mobility problem. However, when combined with chair stands and balance exercises, it addresses another key part of walking well. Movement, strength, balance, and mobility work together to create a strong foundation for independence. That's exactly what Eleanor focused on: not athletic performance or perfection, but maintaining the abilities that allowed her to live independently. Being able to stand up easily, stay balanced, and move comfortably helped protect the things she valued most: her freedom, confidence, and quality of life. Before we finish, there's one important point many people overlook. Too often, people wait until mobility problems become serious before taking action. They notice walking becoming harder, balance becoming less reliable, or daily tasks requiring more effort, but they tell themselves they'll deal with it later. The reality is that mobility works much like a savings account. Small efforts made consistently can create significant benefits over time, while small losses ignored for years can gradually add up. This doesn't mean you should worry. It simply means that taking action early matters. Even small improvements today can help support greater independence in the future. Robert eventually learned this lesson. He was the same man who struggled to keep up with his granddaughter and worried that his best walking days were behind him. He didn't transform overnight or suddenly become 20 years younger. Instead, he started practicing simple movements, consistently some strength exercises, some balance training, and some mobility work. As weeks turned into months, he noticed gradual improvements. Walking felt easier, his confidence increased, and longer outings no longer seemed intimidating. Most importantly, he stopped focusing on what he had lost and started focusing on what he could still improve. That shift in mindset made a huge difference. One of the biggest myths about aging is that decline is completely beyond our control. While none of us can stop time, the body still has an impressive ability to adapt, strengthen, and improve when given consistent attention, even later in life. If walking isn't as easy as it once was, don't assume it's a permanent condition. It may simply be your body's way of asking for more movement, practice, and support. Sometimes meaningful improvements begin with very simple actions: a few chair stands, a few balance exercises, and a few minutes of marching in place each day. These small habits can help protect something truly valuable: your independence, your confidence, and your freedom to enjoy the people, places, and activities that matter most. If you found this discussion helpful, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We regularly share practical strategies designed to help adults over 60 stay active, confident, and independent for as long as possible. And if you know someone struggling with walking, balance, or mobility, share this information with them. Sometimes the right advice at the right time can make a meaningful difference. Remember, protecting your mobility isn't just about protecting your health. It's about protecting your freedom. And few things are more valuable than that.